our intro to Instinct. Noticing some of the folks that are on this morning, we got them from all over North America. Got guys from Alberta, Canada. We got guys from up in Ontario, from BC. I see guys on from Salt Lake City, the Jensen crew, some of the Triangle Tube team. Got a bunch of guys on today. So we've got Kevin Key, who's our regional field technical support guy up in Wisconsin on today. We've got Tito Melendez, who's going to join in and help the presentation today. Tito is our regional field tech down in the Mid-Atlantic region in New Jersey. We've got Ray Parent, who's our regional sales support up here in the New England market. Morning, Ray. We've got Jason Tremblay, our regional sales manager in the Northeast market, on today as well. So just a warning to everybody who's on today. There will be some salesy stuff on here to get started with. I'll try to keep it brief. Really what we're looking to do here, Chad Marzatelli, I see that face, our regional manager in the Midwest. Morning, Chad. Just going to give you guys an overview of Instinct, kind of touch on the high level stuff, kind of features and benefits type of thing, capabilities, without getting into too deep of a dive there. We're going to take about an hour here. So we can't get too deep into everything today, but just kind of want to give you a flavor of what the Instinct is all about. And then, we're actually next week, and we will be sending out invitations. You guys will all receive, anybody that's on today, invitations for a couple other modules that are ready to go now. One would be kind of a control overview. So we'll take a pretty deep dive into programming the control, the capabilities of the control on Instinct. And we will also look at, there'll be another class next week to talk about applications. So piping and wiring and, associated programming that goes along with those applications too. So, anyway, without further ado, I will get into this presentation. And again, the first probably 15 minutes or so, I'm going to just kind of talk a little bit about who the company is, so you kind of get a feel for who Triangle Tube is today. We've gone through quite a bit of change in the last couple of years. We were acquisitioned by a company called Group Atlantic, based out of Europe. Group Atlantic is a worldwide manufacturing company. That some of the companies they own date back to the early 1900s, so well over 100 years old. The company as they exist today is about a 50-plus year old company. They're family owned, about a $3 billion a year in turnover, owned multiple different brands throughout the world. Pretty strong competitor in the European market. But the benchmark for the company is really based around engineering and manufacturing quality. Pretty diversified portfolio. We'll show you that as we go. But just a real forensic detail to manufacturing process and quality control. One of the largest manufacturers of residential boilers in the world. One of their brands I'll show you in a second as we go. So here's some of the brands under the Group Atlantic family of brands. But Ideal Boiler in the UK, one of the largest producer of boilers in the world, last year produced about 450,000 boilers. Under normal conditions, we produce a boiler about every 25 seconds, residential condensing boilers in that market. So very high volume producer and quality producer. We own about a 30% market share in the UK. And just to kind of give you some perspective, last year that market in the UK was about 1.6 million units. The US last year was about 175,000 boilers across 50 states and 30 some odd brands. A quick look at some of the products under the Group Atlantic family of products. So in the residential sector, things like radiators, water heaters and electric and gas, in heat pump water heaters, also in the heat pump side of things. So air to air, air to water heat pumps. So some of the products that down the road we'll be looking to bring to the North American market alongside our current boiler and water heating portfolio. On the commercial side of things, again, this is throughout the Group Atlantic portfolio of products, but commercial boilers, industrial boilers, commercial water heating, air handling equipment, air conditioning equipment, cascading boilers, let's say on the lighter commercial side, larger residential. There's one product in particular I just want to quickly take a look at, because this is something that we are in development right now to bring to the North American market, and this is what we call the Modumax product. This is manufactured by one of the brands, Hamworthy in the UK, and it's kind of a unique product in that we're taking multiple modular boilers and putting them together to cascade systems in a very small footprint, and then providing a full package of piping and fittings, pumping, isolation, cascade venting capabilities as well. In this particular case, we're looking at modules that are 500,000 BTUs a piece in condensing gas boilers. So right here, you're looking at a 1.5 million BTUs in a stackable system. And, so that showing that implemented into an actual boiler plant, you can see pretty cool, very compact, easy installation, get a lot of BTUs. You're looking at close to 5 million BTUs in this plant. So we're a couple of years away from that, but just kind of show you, some of the future products that you can expect from Group Atlantic. Our philosophy today is that, we're really, under the guidance of Group Atlantic, have put some additional resources in place. And really kind of to back up, this statement, that we want to be an invaluable resource to your business. So, what does that mean? Well, it's not just providing a high quality product. Of course, it starts there, but, also, that we talk about, support, and, what is that support? And that's everything from, technical support and training and warranty support, but it goes throughout. I mean, we've added resources throughout North America in some human resources and technical support guys in the region that can be available to be on site to assist in troubleshooting, but also in help you through applications and pre-sale questions, things of that nature as well. So we believe it does start with a high quality product, reliable products, and backing them with as strong a warranty as is available today. We believe that training and education are really the backbone to this. The fact that you guys are on here today, it's much appreciated. That's your commitment to your company and your business to be informed and to be trained. And our part is to provide that training for you as well. So we believe in strong relationships throughout the chain, and that would be, from us and our team at Triangle 2, but our rep agencies play a huge part in supporting the market. Not only from just providing product to the market, but in their backup in support. So they're kind of frontline, first level support on technical support, and we've got a great group of reps throughout North America that are very talented people that can provide the training, that can provide tech support. They're an integral part of our business. Our distribution partners across the country as well. I mean, these guys are, aside from providing product to you in the in local markets, a lot of our partners today have strong technical people that again, they're just another layer of support in training and technical support. So it really kind of it's just like that. It takes a village, and that's really what what that comes down to. It's just everybody working as a team to support each other's businesses, right? So and that support structure works throughout the sales process. So from pre-sale through installation, after sales, obviously tech support, and then the benchmark to everything really is training. The more training that we can provide, the more training that you get, the better the quality of the installation. The easier it is to troubleshoot when we run into those snags in the field. So that's kind of, who we are and how we go to market, and kind of everything we do revolve around that. So, as such, we try to provide as much resource as we can to support that. We're not always available, let's say, on a job site, or you can't, you don't have, cell coverage or whatnot, but things like, how-to videos on our website. So you can go to our website and find a lot of how-to videos. We keep adding to that. We'll show you, how to run combustion tests, how to change certain components, how to use an analyzer and how to set that up. And we'll talk about, specific boilers. So that library keeps growing. That we've got a YouTube channel that you can access this. And again, you can access it directly through the triangletube.com website. Main phone number, as you can see on the screen, 856-228-8881, kind of get you to all of the departments. That'll get you to warranty, technical, customer service. If you're looking for spare parts, that's the number to get you there. You can also get to all of our departments through our website as well too. So a very brief history on Triangle Tube. So we're looking at, we date back to 1946. The company started out manufacturing tankless coils, right, for the predominantly for the oil industry. So a lot of OEM products manufactured for well-known brands that you'd know in the U.S. We were the source for producing those coils, and then manufacturing replacement coils for just about everybody over the years. Eventually, the company got into it was purchased and got into the indirect water heating business. We launched the Phase 3 tank back in the 80s. A lot of you guys may remember Phase 3. And then eventually got into the boiler business in 2004, launched the Prestige boiler. So we're the original innovator of the fire tube heat exchanger, bringing that to North America. As time marched on, the tank indirect water heater went through some design change. Eventually became the smart tank, kind of that same concept of tank in tank, very large heat exchange surface area, for quicker recovery, low pressure loss on the boiler side of things. So a lot of advantage to that tank. So it's kind of gone through some changes. In the early 2000s, launched a series of hydronic heat exchangers for pool heating and snow melt, so brazed plate and frame, and pool heat exchangers, which we still enjoy strong market share today in. Launched Challenger boiler in 2011, kind of in response to a market that was starting to emerge in combi boilers. It's crazy to think that was nearly 10 years ago. But time marches on, and also kind of gave us an answer to kind of some lower price point products that were hitting the market at that point. Prestige boiler has gone through some modifications and upgrades over the years. Today is the PA version, as you guys are well aware, and then kind of brings us up to date, right? So the launch of the Instinct product last fall. So Instinct today, kind of our portfolio looks like this. You've got the Prestige boiler that takes you right up through the 399,000 BTU. Heavy residential, light commercial is available in a cascading package, and then the Smart Tank. We're actually just launching to date an upgrade to the Smart Tank. The Smart Tank is now being manufactured with a 316L stainless. So that's an improvement on the material that adds to the corrosion resistance of the tank, longevity, and we're introducing an even stronger warranty to the smart tank that's being launched currently, along with some other product improvements. But that is a presentation for another day. And we're here to talk about Instinct. So the Instinct boiler really is kind of, today gives us a product that meets the demands of the market, which are largely moving towards the combi market. Combi boilers today represent about half of the boilers sold in North America. Stronger presence on the East Coast than most of the rest of North America, but growing elsewhere. So, some of you guys I know are in on the West Coast, in the upper Midwest. You've got a combi market that is there. It might not be as strong as what we see back here on the East Coast, but it's a growing market. Like I said, overall throughout North America, it represents half of the residential condensing boilers that are sold today. So it's a very important product for us. So kind of a quick glimpse at really what we're going to highlight today as we go through here. And these are, what we see are kind of the key features and benchmarking of the Prestige, the Instinct product, right? So the control system is, one of, if not the best control on the market, in the fact that it allows you very quick and easy setup. If you've never used the control before, you use the control wizard on this thing, and you can set your boiler up in less than a minute. It's very intuitive, very easy to use. Yet a deeper dive into the control will show you that it is very comprehensive. There's a lot of things that you can do to customize that for different applications. There's a lot of functionality in there when it comes to servicing and troubleshooting. Everything is in plain text, spelled out for you. There's no guessing or having to look at an error number, alphanumeric code, and then have to go to a book and find that. It's going to tell you what's going on. So we'll show you that as we go through. Domestic water output, obviously a very important function when we're talking about combis. So we're going to highlight the domestic water output on the Instinct boiler. Talk about the quality and why this product is so good in terms of overall product quality. Discuss the warranty. We offer industry best warranty. Talk about the serviceability. What's behind the serviceability. That was part of the design criteria from the beginning, was to make the product very serviceable. And then talk about the heat exchanger, which is really kind of the heart and soul of the Instinct boiler. So looking again at the specifications, we know we've got a high efficiency condensing gas boiler. There are 5 models in the range, 2 combis and 3 heat only boilers that range from 110 to 199,000 BTUs. All models are a minimum of 95% AFUE Energy Star rated, so they qualify for rebates, state, local, federal, in your markets. Stainless steel fire tube heat exchanger, intuitive user interface. So it's the control, I guess, for the first time user, or if you've not had much training, it's pretty self-explanatory and easy to use control. Talk about multiple pump outputs. So, depending upon the application, we can change what the pump outputs do. They're not just fixed. We call them flexible pump outputs. So it's a really cool feature. We also feature multiple heating curves. So you're not just one water temperature. We can utilize multiple water temperatures when you have systems that have different types of radiation on there. So all built into the control. Onboard cascading of multiple boilers built into the control. So if you're going to use more than one boiler for an application, you don't have to buy an additional control to do that. It's just a simple cable connection between the boilers. And what we're seeing too already, we launched Instinct back in the fall, and immediately guys are looking at the boiler for applications where they may have used a 399, so they need 400,000 BTUs or something in that neighborhood, and instead of putting in a single boiler, they're going in and putting in 2 Instinct boilers. And really, part of the reasoning for that is the price point on Instinct is very attractive. So in a lot of cases where you can put in a single 399 you could purchase and install two 199s for very similar pricing, and which would include the additional labor to put two boilers in, piping two boilers, venting two boilers. Again, it's just a very aggressive price point, but also, the benefits of having multiple boilers, obviously, right? If something were to go wrong with one, or, let's say you had a bad igniter, or anything, you still have another boiler there. So you've got the redundancy built in. And then you've got the additional turn down ratio. So we get a much higher turn down with multiple boilers. So the instinct boilers feature an 8-to-1 turn down each boiler. So in a 2-boiler cascade, if my math is good, we're a 16-to-1 turn down, right? Or a 32-to-2, depending upon how you want to look at it. Multi-port vent adapters on the boilers, which means that we can put PVC, CPVC, stainless steel, different manufacturers directly into the vent connections without adding adapters to it. So a nice feature there. LP kit included with all boilers, and our industry-leading warranty attached to all the boilers as well. So a quick look at the different models. So 2 combis, a 155 combi and a 199. Again, with that 8-to-1 turn down ratio, get you minimum firing rate on the 155 at about 20,000 BTUs, and on the 199 at about 25,000 BTUs. And again, both LP and natural gas. I'm showing you over here on the right the domestic water output for the combi boilers. I'm gonna show you a little bit more detail on the next slide here. So we'll breeze over that. On the solo models, there's a 110, 155, and 199 model. And again, with that 8-to-1 turn down ratio, the 110 can fire down as low as 13,750, and then 20,000 BTUs on the 155 and 25,000 BTUs on the 199. Right, so as I talked about domestic water performance, right, is really critical when we're talking combi boilers, because we want as much domestic water as we possibly can get. So we will show you a best-in-class output in terms of performance on domestic water, but additionally, we do that and we do that very, very efficiently as well. But what I'm talking about there is we're able to actually condense while we're making domestic water as well, and that starts with this heat exchanger that we use. It's a very large flat plate heat exchanger. Just to give you just a quick overview on the functionality of the domestic water portion of the combi boiler. So over here to the far right, you have your CH, so your central heating system. So that's our return from the heating system. That water comes up and makes its way through the boiler and then back down through the diverter valve. And in a call for space heating with no call for domestic water, that water is going to come out and go out to, again, central heating flow, so that your hot water out to your system. On a call for domestic water, so basically domestic cold comes into this port, a second one from the right, and as it does, there's a flow sensor here that's going to pick up that flow, and we can actually read that on the control. We'll know exactly how much flow we have. At a minimum of a half a gallon, so 0.5 GPM, the boiler will go into domestic water mode, so that return water will then make its way across the heat exchanger this way, right? And your cold water will come across this way, and we're going to pick up that temperature here with an NTC sensor, and then out to the system, right? So now on that call, the stepper motor is going to push a plunger down and not allow the boiler flow out to your system. So now that boiler flow is going to come across your flat plate heat exchanger and then return to the system this way. So now your path of flow becomes, around the flat plate and through the boiler this way. Pretty straightforward, right? Pretty simple. So with that large flat plate heat exchanger, allows maximum amount of heat transfer, and as I said, allows you to actually condense during domestic water mode. Which means we've got to get return water temperatures down pretty low, through this heat exchanger. And again, the large flat plate heat exchanger allows us to do that. Also, by operating at lower temperatures on the boiler side when we're making domestic water, because of the large flat plate heat exchanger, it reduces scaling potential. So where you've got a lot of minerals in your water, and you've got high hardness, the higher the water temperature that you operate, the the more scaling that you're going to have, the more of those minerals are going to precipitate out of the water and adhere to your heat exchanger. By keeping boiler water temperature low, we're going to minimize the scaling in the flat plate heat exchanger over a period of time. So as you scale up in that heat exchanger, you potentially will have a drop off in performance. So we want to minimize that as much as possible. So looking at performance, right? So the performance is really going to be based on a temperature rise. So how much of a temperature rise I'm looking to bring that incoming water temperature. So if you've got groundwater temperature that's coming in, at 45 degrees or 50 degrees, or if you live up in Alberta, it's coming in at 36 degrees, 34 degrees. And so we want to bring that temperature up. So we're going to bring it up 80 degrees, or we're going to bring it up 70 degrees or 75 degrees. Right? So we'll show you that at varying temperature rises. Right, so with the 155, we can get up to 4 gallons a minute output at a 70-degree temperature rise. And as that temperature rise goes up, then your output is going to go down slightly. And then over on the 199, upwards of 5+ gallons a minute in domestic water at that 70-degree temperature rise. And then again, as your temperature rise starts to increase, that starts to drop down accordingly. So very large domestic water output performance. To give you a quick look at a comparison to one of our competitors that will remain nameless, but both of these boilers feature 199,000 BTU input, yet the output on domestic water, we will show at the same temperature rise, at 77-degree temperature rise, we'll show you a 4.85 GPM output versus a 4.5. If you do the math, you'll see that efficiency-wise, they're running at 87% efficiency, and the instinct boiler is going to run in condensing mode at over 93% efficient in that mode. So it stays consistent in efficiency, whether we're in domestic or space heating modes. So moving on to the quality portion of the show, really what this comes down to when we talk about quality is, how are you building your product? For one, it's the manufacturing process. Right? So we use a manufacturing process called no fault forward, which basically it's kind of a built-in audit to the manufacturing process, where we use checkpoints that are computerized, and using video imaging, using sensors to make sure that you've got continuity through your wiring, that everything has been fully fitted, that every screw is in place. And so there's over 200 checkpoints built into this. So it doesn't matter who is assembling this. So the other thing that we do is one person assembles the boiler. It doesn't go through a line. One person goes through each process. And if it doesn't pass, any of these tests, it gets stopped and they've got to go back, or the boiler gets moved aside. So there's a built-in quality control to the manufacturing process. The other thing is, what are you using for components to build your boiler? And this is where it's critical. So I'll let you in on a little secret, right? We don't manufacture pumps. We don't manufacture fans. We don't manufacture gas valves, right? So any manufacturer can say that. And you guys, it's pretty, it's pretty self-explanatory, but if you don't stop and you think about that. So there's components on your boiler that you have to source. You have to go to a manufacturer and purchase those products, right? So, and you've got an option, what are you going to buy? Are you going to buy, what's cost effective, or are you going to buy the highest quality components that you can buy? And as I said, it's kind of a benchmark for Group Atlantic, is that, we start with the highest quality components that we can possibly source to build our product, so that we have longevity, so that your customer has a reliable product for a long lifespan, and we back that with a very strong warranty. So just to take you through this very quickly, right? So some of the components, and these are brands you may or may not have heard of. So Anstos is a German manufacturer of ignition systems. So the spark generator that we use on the instinct boiler comes from Anstos. And one thing I'll point out too, that's located, so a lot of manufacturers will use let's say an onboard spark generator. It was located right on their circuit board. and then you've got to run a cable up to your igniter that comes from this board and it gets fished behind the heat exchanger controls and then onto your igniter. So that cable tends to be 30, 36 inches long by the time you're done. So there is a loss of energy between that ignition control and igniter. So in order to minimize that loss, we use a high quality spark generator and locate it as close to the igniter as possible, and then use a very short shielded cable between the two. So the Anstos spark generator generates energy about 30% higher than most manufacturers on the market today. And then the loss of energy between that and the igniter is extremely low, which means we get consistent light offs, we get smooth, quiet light offs, and you get a very, very long service life out of this component. Polidoro is who we use for our Venturi on the system, very high quality manufacturer. AIC has been manufacturing heat exchangers under the design with a triangle tube for nearly 20 years now, the leading manufacturer of fire tube heat exchangers globally. Residio Controls, who's a Honeywell-owned company. EBM Pabst, most of you guys know who EBM are. They're the leading manufacturer of fans in the condensing boiler world. Honeywell, I'm sure you've heard of them before. Federal Mogul, a company some of you guys might have heard of. These guys are a major supplier and producer of components for the automotive racing industry. They make ignition systems, they make spark plugs. And you think about, the quality of what those components are in a race car and what they're exposed to, right? And how many cycles they go through and the heat they go through. And that's who we go to manufacture the igniter now for the instinct boiler. Grundfos, I don't think anybody's going to argue that they are one of the leaders, if not the leader, in pumps globally. So using all very high quality components to manufacture instinct boiler. So moving on, talk a little bit about the heat exchanger. I mentioned AIC fire tube down-fired heat exchanger. It's all 439 stainless outer shell, inner shell, all stainless steel turbulators. And I point that out because there are other stainless steel fire tube heat exchangers on the market that are not all stainless. So they either stainless tubes with and maybe stainless inner shell with a carbon steel outer shell, or some manufacturers will use an aluminum insert to promote heat transfer within the tubes themselves. But what you get with aluminum is you get oxidation and you get a maintenance heavy product, right? So this is all stainless steel. Important to point that out. Much larger surface area with the fire tube heat exchanger for heat transfer, more water content, so produces longer run times, less short cycling on your boiler, give you a longer service life, and promote self-cleaning as you condense down through your fire tube heat exchangers. So looking at the heat exchanger, just to kind of give you a quick look at the design and functionality, pretty basic, right? So we fire down into the top of the heat exchanger, and your flue products come out the flue collector this way, and we exhaust that way. Return water comes in the bottom of the heat exchanger. So what you're doing here is you're bringing your coldest water against your lowest flue gas temperatures, right, which promotes condensing, right? So we're going to take and drop those flue gas temperatures to a low a temperature as possible before they exhaust, right? That's going to promote condensing. And then as your water picks up heat coming up through the heat exchanger, it exits out here to your supply to your system. Right? So, and if we get return water temperature low enough, we get condensation, right? Which is what we're looking to do. So we pick up additional heat energy through the condensation process. So if we're talking about a typical system where you're delivering 180-degree water temperature to, let's say, fin tube baseboard, and you're returning 160 degrees to your boiler, you're not going to condense. I think most of us are aware of that. When we look at condensing boilers, it's really important that we get return water temperature low enough to condense. So what's that temperature? Really what we're talking about is getting a temperature down around 120 degrees back to the boiler in order to condense. So we're talking getting flue products. So you've got to get your flue gas temperature down to about 130 degrees, depending upon CO2 level, to get it to actually start the condensing process, right? So we go back and we say, well, we got fin tube or we've got fan coils and I'm running 180 degrees. I'm never going to condense, right? Well, never say never, right? We can use outdoor reset control. It's very simple, as you can see by these charts right here. I'm kidding. It's not that complicated. You know, when we talk about 180 degree water temperature, we're talking about design condition, coldest day of the year, right? So if that's a 0 degree day, I may need 180, but as it starts to warm up outside, I can drop my supply temperature down to compensate. So one, it promotes comfort level in the home, but also promotes efficiency and also condensing. And then when we get into these these shoulder seasons here, that 60, 50 degree day, we can get some relatively cold water temperature consistently. I know in New England, where I'm located right now, it is early May, and we are still in heating season. So, a lot of areas, we're going to have, we're going to be heating right up till June, at least to some degree. And then, we'll start that again in September. So there's a big chunk of the heating season when we can take advantage of condensing, even if we're looking at what we would traditionally consider to be high temperature systems. So moving on to the serviceability side, so a couple of things to point out, right? Something is as simple as the cabinet design. So the cabinet is basically designed to be angled. So when you pull the front cover off the cabinet, you've got more access to the components internally. Right? Something like the hanger bracket on the boiler, it's slotted so that as you mount the bracket and then you go to mount the boiler up here, you can actually see the bracket, so you know that you've got it secured and on, and it's, you don't have two guys going, are you on, are you on? No, you know you're there, so prevents any unfortunate accidents from happening on the job site. And then when we took looking to the far right, we look at just basically how much room you have inside of this boiler. And again, with serviceability in mind, we want to make sure that you've got plenty of room to get in and, access components and work inside. It's really not a question of how much stuff can we jam inside of this box. Some of the competition out there, it's kind of really the focus is, how small of a box can we make, because we can get more of these things on a container when we're shipping these things over from Europe or Asia or wherever they're coming from, and it's going to be more cost effective that way, right? So, I mean, some of our competitors put in upwards of 240 boilers on a single container, where we're shipping 160 at a time over from Europe. Because of the size of the cabinet and the room that you've got to work on in the boiler. So, I mean, obviously, we've got to be, cost competitive, but we also understand that, our customers have to live with this product for, a long, long time. We want to make sure that it's very serviceable. So a couple other things to point out. I'd mentioned earlier that Anstar spark generator located, just above the heat exchanger with a very short connection, ignition cable down to your igniter. But so very easy to access. It's right there. You don't have to go looking for it. Something like this from a design aspect. So a lot of a lot of boilers out there do have built-in pressure switches today. But one simple design change like this is that the pressure switch is located in a vertical position that basically promotes less debris entering inside of this pressure sensor. Any of you guys that have, had experience with pressure sensors over the year, if they're in a horizontal position, or heaven forbid they're in a, coming from underneath, then they're more likely to get contaminated and give you those nuisance call where you've got to go out, either replace or clean it. So and just prevents that buildup from happening. I mentioned earlier the hydro block. I showed you that, right? So all metal, brass, and stainless steel construction. We don't use plastic or any sort of polymers in the construction. So again, it's about long service life. The stepper motor that we use is a one-piece plunger design, so it powers open and powers closed. There's no spring in there, so there's a lot less likelihood of this the controlled jamming in here. Again, giving you nuisance calls. Also, on the serviceability side of things, we're talking about just the diagnostic function of the boiler. I mentioned earlier, everything is in plain text and no code. So, you look at the boiler, it's pretty self-explanatory. Like I can walk up here and say, okay, well, I got a call for domestic water. This tells me my pump is running, or at least I'm putting power to my pump for domestic water. I do have ignition, so I see my flame symbol here. I can see the supply and return water temperature without having to go anywhere. I'm just basically telling you that right now. My target temperature for boiler supply is at 186, so that's what I'm maintaining here. So just things like that. It tells you currently what's going on. Just some other things that will help in aiding to troubleshoot. Things like do I have a call for heating? Do I have a call for domestic water? What's my boiler firing rate? What's my ionization current? This is a great one right here. Sometimes if you've got a nuisance lockout on just flame rectification, a lot of times you've got to get a multimeter out and you've got to put that in series, right, with your flame sensing to try to read what your microamps on here. We're going to show you that right on the control. It'll tell you exactly what's going on. So if you've got a dirty flame sensor on that, this would immediately alert you to that. So you've got very low flame rectification signal, tells you that right on the control. Anywhere we've got a sensor on the system, you'll be able to see that. So if it's supply, return water, domestic water temperature in the tank, what am I supplying to the domestic water? What's the delta T across the tank? So just a lot of these things help in troubleshooting down the road. Right, so we can see those. Stores information in here as well, in terms of runtime, how many ignitions that you have. Down here also domestic water flow. Well, I was mentioned that earlier on the combi boiler. This will tell you what your flow rate is on your combi. So if I've got multiple fixtures open, you can see exactly what the flow rate here is. Again, all designed to help in servicing and troubleshooting. I'm going to touch on the warranty really quick. So I had mentioned best-in-class warranty. So what we've done with the warranty is we've kind of changed our approach to warranty. So rather than putting a warranty on a product, we have took the angle of putting the warranty on the actual installation. So it's rewarding best practices on installation. So we know if we've got a good quality installation, that the product is going to last longer. We're going to have fewer issues on component failure, that type of stuff, right? So it makes a lot of sense, right? So what we call a 3-point warranty, so kind of a good, better, best. So Instinct out of the box offers a 10-year full heat exchanger warranty. It's not prorated with a 1-year parts warranty, right? With a simple registration. All we're asking is for registration. That can be done by the installer or the homeowner. They go on our website and register the product. We'll take that warranty now to a 5 years on parts and a 2-year labor allowance. And really what that does too is this is an in-house warranty, right? That once you register, you've got the warranty. It's not a third party. You don't have to register with somebody else, for that. It's basically handled internally by Triangle Tube. And then to take things one step further would be, and as we're talking about rewarding best practices, when you set the boiler up and you install it, right, all we're asking for you to do is put a combustion analyzer on the boiler, set the boiler up to specifications that as are laid out in the manual, and then when you warranty, provide us a picture of your combustion analysis that you can upload through the website. You can do it on your phone, very simple. So once we've got that, we're going to take that 5-year parts, 2-year labor to a 6-year parts and 3-year labor allowance. So as such, we know that guys that are taking that step and that are setting up combustion properly are more conscientious, higher caliber installers. When you do that, automatically we will list you on our dealer finder. So when consumers go to the website and they're looking for an installer in their neck of the woods, those guys that are registering product and providing combustion analysis are going to show up on that dealer search with your website information, with your phone number contact, so that we can drive that consumer lead directly to you. So that is it for my portion of the show here. I am going to turn things over to Tito Melendez, who's going to kind of walk you guys through the installation side of Instinct. So Tito, if you're ready to rock and roll, you should be good to go.
I'm ready. All right. So I'm Tito Melendez, like Mark said, and I'm taking over from here to control. All right. So I'm just going to basically go over the controls, like Mark said earlier. Right on control, everything that you see here is pretty much in plain text. You can tell the boiler's firing, what the temperatures are, you supply return temps, what the demand is, and the target temps. Basically, this control has what they call a 60-second startup. It's very easy to get into the quick setup of this control. You also have the ability of having 2 outdoor reset curves, so you can supply 2 different temperatures through the boiler to 2 different zones, and as well as your BHW. Right now, we're setting up all the boilers at factory, calibrating them for natural gas. But part of that warranty, the best warranty that Mark talked about, is we do want you to go ahead and double check them and record those findings in the field and get that best warranty. In a quick start, we have it's called Easy Setup. Basically, you can go through in the Easy Setup, you click on that wand there from the home screen, you click on the wand, and then go into Easy Setup, and that radiator then takes you into your CH setup. Now, using an outdoor sensor where it says CH demand would be thermostat set point, you have the ability to have, which is going to say thermostat outdoor curve, thermostat at set point, and then your 0 to 10 modulation. Here you can go through 2 different set points when you're using the 2 different CH1 or CH2 controls, and then that's it. It's Easy Setup will be complete. Within that Easy Setup, on the right-hand side, you'll see as you scroll through those curves, you see the different options. These are preset curves. And this is just for the Easy Setup, just to get you, in and out of the boiler within the 60 seconds, and you can scroll through and check on click the low temp heating, low temp radiant, and then the different radiators, cast iron, baseboard, and to fan coil, and so forth. Then from there, you would go back and click on that faucet with the wand, and that's going to give you your domestic heating setup. You got the two options of your thermostat, which would be an appostat on your indirect or the sensor, and then you can go ahead and choose your set point from there for the domestic. When you're using the sensor, you have more controllability. It also will display what the boiler's target temperatures are as well as what the domestic output is right on the control, right from that first screen that we showed you. And you'll see that all through here, the domestic storage set point. You have the ability to use a DHW priority timeout. The DHW priority timeout is helpful for if you have a pump that goes bad or something like that, you won't lose the ability to heat the home. It won't get stuck in priority time, in the priority mode, and lose the heating side of the boiler. You could set that for about an hour or so. So if you do lose a pump or something, it will go back and allow the home to be heated up, and then the easy setup is complete. One thing we want to emphasize on is the venting. It's very important to get the venting to avoid cross contamination. We'll go through the different components of the boiler. We have the adapter on the top of the boiler, appliance adapter, which has the ability for 3-inch PVC, CPVC, poly, and stainless. And your lengths here on the CPVC, your PVC, and it's 28 feet. 3-inch would be 100 feet, and then you have to take into account your fittings into that equation. And here, everybody's seen this chart. We want to, emphasize is, be careful of the inside corners when you're doing direct venting, so that you're not pulling in your combustion airs, and also with your codes, your local codes would talk about staying away from the windows and doors into the settings that are in the manual. Also, your supply and venting tube, your makeup air and your venting tube piping, you want to be 12 inches or greater from each other, so that you don't have any cross contamination. Here. Oh, there you go. Also, when you're venting, you want to, just be aware of the fact of use common sense. I mean, for the most part, if you see in these pictures, this is some really creative venting practices. Want to make sure that you don't get the cross contamination. Also, the venting doesn't have to have equal lengths between your intake and your exhaust. You want to try to stay as close as possible, and they do not need to be vented or egressed in the same pressure zones. You can have your vent go up through the roof and your makeup air through the side of the building. If you're using Category 4 piping and you're taking combustion air from the inside of the home, you want to make sure that you have enough makeup air available to that room, 50 cubic feet per 1,000 BTUs. And minimum separation, like I mentioned before, 12 inches vertically and as well as horizontal. These are more of the creative things that we've seen out in the field. With the 3 concentrics, being very close to each other and very, very close to those gas meters. There's a lot of potential for cross-contamination. We want to avoid that at all costs. Over on the right-hand side, you see that PVC pipe that created a trap. And your condensate is not going to make it back to the boiler. So, that's one of the ways that we increase efficiency, like Mark talked about earlier. So, basically pay attention to the manual and focus on what your environments are outside the home. Over here, on the left-hand side, you got a sidewall termination that's kind of blowing at that operable window. I mean, there's no way that's within parameters of what the local codes would be. And over on the the right-hand side, we're going out the building and down into those, I believe those are holly bushes there. And it's just a bad situation for everything. Let's go again. And here we have a side. Oops. Is that me or you, Mark? There you go. The sidewall termination in between an alleyway with that concentric. You get two problems there. It's down pitched, and plus you're aiming right at that brick wall. I mean, we all understand that's a really bad situation there. And then we have what my colleague Jason refers to as the fern vent. Just all bad news. Just be very.
It's my favorite vent, Tito, the fern vent.
The fern vent, yeah. You bring it up on all your presentations, and it caught on with me pretty well. And then we're gonna go on to the. Okay, we're gonna talk about just the wiring capabilities here. Go back a little bit. So here we have on the inside, we have ability to control up to 3 pumps. On the combi, you have your primary pump included in the boiler, and on your the solos, you have to supply your boiler pump. The flame contacts here would give you your options pumps, and then within our setup within the menu, you can choose what pumps come on at what point. Another thing we bring up is on our control, we do have a power button, but that power button only kills power to the boiler. The boiler does require a separate disconnect. And the reason for that is it just kills the control. The boiler would still have power, allowing the boiler to go into frost, freeze and frost protections within the boiler. And there's our flame, again, the flexible pump outputs. So we're able to go within the software and choose what pumps come on for all the different applications within the system or within your needs. There's our low voltage connections. So we have the ability of CH2, a system sensor when you're cascading boilers. We have 0 to 10 modulation, so that the external modulation will control the firing rate of the boiler rather than the control. And so CH1, an outdoor sensor, which we highly recommend using so that you can adjust those curves and get this boiler to condense as much as possible. And then your DHW sensor or aquastat. Again, with using the sensor, you're going to get more controllability through the control, be able to see what the output is, what the boiler set points are. When you just use the aquastat, you're going to go to one setting, and, one temperature range, but it won't actually tell you what the domestic supply output is. We also have a Modbus capability for building management systems right on the control, and then within the control you can adjust your addresses for those Modbus systems. Another great feature right on the control itself, we have the ability to have both manual and auto reset controls and our limits, and the limits will be located right down on the right-hand side of our control. You'll see jumpers included with the boiler. You remove those jumpers and simply connect the low voltage wiring to the dry contacts on whichever limit that you use, whether it's manual or auto. If you do have a manual external limit that does open, the control will display that there's a manual limit open. At that point, you would actually have to remedy the problem, reset the manual limit, and also reset the boiler at that point. If you have an auto reset, once that limit rectifies itself, it will resume operation of the boiler, so you don't necessarily have to manually go out there and restart that boiler. You have the ability of running them between external low water controls, the communicating fire smoke detectors. And here's a little bit of the piping. We have extensive piping diagrams available right online, as well as a supplement manual. Here we're showing an Instinct Solo with a low loss header. And then this is a closely spaced tees. It's a time saver manifold that we have available as well. That takes kind of the guesswork out of getting the setting up the closely spaced tees. You see, they come with unions, and then you have the purge tees built in, the purge valves right here. And this little input is for the trafficated gauge that comes with all the boilers. And here's a little setup here of a single zone setup where you're not using a low loss header or closely spaced tees. If you're close to an air handler, you can go right out of the boiler, right through your air eliminator, and directly into that air handler. This is on the combi models only, because the combi has the internal 1578 OEM pump set up. And you can see here we're using the thermostat. We have the outdoor sensor, the PHW sensor if you have an indoor.
I was on a Beacon Morris webinar, and I was trying to figure out who the other participants were, and that's RC Sales out of Chicago. I went over to their website to see what they were about. They had a listing of all of their distributors.
Hey, Mark Nelson, how are you, bud?
In Chicago.
Maybe hit mute if you don't mind, please.
Because it's good information.
Or if Mark, can you mute Mark Nelson there?
Okay, Neil Smith.
Or just mute everyone.
Okay.
Think.
I think I lost control there. Okay, here's oh, I'm muted, Mark.
I can hear you, Tito. You're good.
Okay, it just said I was muted on the screen. Here's a combi using a low loss header with two zones here. So we have the air handler here, which would be a high temperature zone, and then we have radiant here on the left side using a low temperature zone. Now with that low temperature zone, you want to make sure that you're using a mixing valve here. You tie off, you go right back to the control for your pumps. And what that does is on the CH curve, the two curves, you can have the two different temps. And what the control will do is satisfy that high temp zone first, and then continue on with that low temp zone if needed, if there's a continual call. And you can see also out of the combi just a little diagram of how we set up using a mixing valve coming out and going to your domestic appliances. And here's a diagram also of a combi using three zones. So in this case, we're going to have an external switching relay. But one of the things that we can do here, since the your domestic is going to be on priority, and you don't want these zones pulling at the same time. After the low loss header, we're going to run a single wire from this flame outlet over into this switching relay. And then we're going to go into CZ on the switching relay. I have another diagram coming up next that will show that. What that does is while this boiler is creating domestic priority, these pumps won't keep running with these thermostats closed. This relay will isolate the 110 voltage through. The domestic priority will kill power here until the domestic priority is satisfied, and then will allow these circulators to run once as the demand is needed. And here's just a little bit of a close-up view of that relay. We want to remove this jumper here and then bring a single wire over to the line side of flame. There you go. And then that will control the circulators on your heating zone. And here we have solo using zone valves here. And basically your system pump is going to run out of flame. There are options that you can choose in the flexible pump setups to tell which boilers or which circulators to come on at different in different scenarios. In this case, you have your primary pump running through the low loss header, and then you have your domestic for your indirect coming after that low loss header. In this case, we're going to need this pump to run and the indirect pump to run both simultaneously whenever there's a domestic demand. What that does is being on the outside of the low loss header, on the secondary side of the low loss header, it gives you the ability to use a smaller pump, because now you don't have to worry about the head pressure running through the heat exchanger on the boiler. Once, need to speed up. All right, I'm gonna get through this a little faster. And here's the solo, similar to using zone valves, and the same kind of scenario here, where we have the line voltage coming out of flame going to CZ on the switching relay to operate these three zones, as well as give domestic priority to the indirect if needed. And then we have the other option here. Basically, what you have is your air handler will tie back to the boiler, and then now you only need a single zone relay for your low temperature zone here. Like Mark said before, we have the capability of cascading up to 6 solos, and here's just a little diagram. All these are available in our on our website, all the different pipe drawings. Our cascade system is pretty easy setup. You plug in a wire right into the main control board. The slave will go right into the display. The master will control all the functions. It's a very easy, intuitive setup, and the software will find the additional boilers that will know that it's in cascade mode. And we give you this little cheat sheet. This cheat sheet is available on our website. It's primarily for your solo boilers. You're going to see here down below that you're going to have all the different circulators that you would need for the 199. We really want you to be using it at the 26.99. Our boilers, the 155s and the 155s and 110s will have the 1558 built in for a 20-degree delta T. If you want a wider range, if you want to go for a 30-degree delta T, then you would have to use the 26.99 on the 155. This is a little diagram. This is also on our cheat sheet, available on our website. And then one of the biggest things, and that goes along with our best warranty, is we really want to push combustion testing and making sure that these boilers are dialed in. Very easy to get to. You're going to go into our manual. Let's go back 1 second. This little wrench will show here. You want to hit the up and down arrows simultaneously, and that will bring you over into this installer screen. The code is 054. That gets you into where you can control the firing rate. You're going to go and click on this little hand here. This little hand will bring up this screen, and this screen is where you're going to release your fan. The fan is what gets the boiler to operate. Once you click on that, you can bring your firing rate from 0, or 1, which would be low fire, all the way up to high fire. Here's our target, 9.5 on natural gas, 7.8, and then we give you a range, for tolerance. This is the gas valve. The gas valve for all 3 models or 5 models are set up exactly the same. Here's your adjustment screw. This is what you're going to be using on your high fire. And then here is your offset screw, and this would be only used for low fire. And the best time in the life of these boilers is going to be day 1. So this chart, filling out this chart, will really help you down the road when you go back year after year, or whatever your maintenance schedule is. The first day you're going to set up what your readings are. You're going to fill out all this information here. If you see drastic changes in these following years, this kind of gives you an idea, well, what type of maintenance. So I have to get into the fire side of that heat exchanger. I have to flush it out, and so forth and so on. So it's very important to fill out the chart for your service records. And another thing here is big is the antifreeze and inhibitors. You want to treat your systems, especially if you're swapping out a boiler with an existing system, and that old system had a lot of steel radiators and so forth, so on. You want to flush that out and make sure that you're using the system cleaners and inhibitors. And make sure that your water quality are within these parameters, as well as your hardness, and your glycol, a maximum of 50%. We really don't see that type of, at least in my region, 30% is more than enough for using glycol in the system. Another big thing here to consider when you're replacing a boiler, or even installing a new system, is making sure that your gas piping is correct. And as you can see here, when you're going for, trying to put in 199,000 BTU, you ripped out a 100,000 BTU boiler. You're going to go over here on the chart, and if you have 1 inch or half-inch pipe, well, really you're not going to get into the 199,000 BTU range for BTU output. So you're going to have to get over to bump that up to 3/4 or 1 inch, depending on what your needs are and your length. So it's very important to use these charts, taking into consideration all the fittings, and all this should be taken into account before you even install the boiler. Take a look at your meter sizing, your gas availability in that building before you go and put this boiler. Most of the time, you're going to sell this, especially the common boilers for your domestic output need. So just be conscious of what you're doing there. And then don't forget to do your combustion testing and register the product, and that's going to get you, best warranty, as well as get you on that contract locator, and you're going to do the best for your customer, for the end user.
So thank you, Tito. I'm just going to wrap things up here real quick. Just kind of a recap of what we talked about. Kind of the key points, right? We talked about the control. It kind of showed you really quickly. I mean, it's a really easy control to utilize for troubleshooting, for setup with the, the setup wizard. There's a lot of flexibility in, how you set your system up. Domestic water output, best in class in terms of the volume of hot water available. Quality components from obviously heat exchanger, but everything we put in the boiler, the design, the manufacturing, really kind of leads up to the next point, and that's the warranty. We back our boiler with a very strong warranty because we know, the quality, how well it's built, the components that go into it. The serviceability, again, that kind of ties back to the control a bit and how easy that is, but, the room inside the boiler, how much room there is to, get in there and service components when you have to. Let's face it, at some point, whether that's a year from now or 8 years from now or 14 years from now, somewhere along the lines, you're going to need to get in there. I mean, obviously, we recommend regular servicing. It's going to keep your, boiler running at peak efficiency and reduce, major costs down the road. So preventative maintenance is very important when we're talking about, high efficiency boilers. I'll tell you a quick little anecdotal story. Years ago that just brought up early on when condensing boilers were kind of becoming more the norm in the United States. The U.S. Department of Energy went and interviewed a lot of the manufacturers in Europe, because that's where all these products were coming from. And they, one of the key things was, what's the life expectancy? Because you ask guys, you're like, well, what's the life expectancy of a boiler? We see life expectancies on cast iron boilers that are 20, 30 plus years. And we've recently come across a couple of ideal boilers here in the United States, which were, which is actually part of Group Atlantic, that sold under the American Radiator Company, like at turn of the century, like early 1900s. We found a few boilers in the New England market from the 1930s that were still in operation. It's cast iron boiler, right? That's, pushing 90 years old, 80, 90 years old. So you can get these real long, longevity out of these products. And I think the fear was, when we started moving away from cast iron and condensing equipment, was how long are these boilers going to last? And, manufacturers are, showing you a 10-year warranty, a 15-year warranty. So the U.S. Department of Energy went over and they talked to these manufacturers in Europe, and what they came away with was this: is that there's no reason that you can't get 20 plus years out of this equipment if it's installed properly and you service it regularly. So serviceability is really, really a key here, for your business. It's a revenue stream, for you guys that, if you're not providing, that service, that annual maintenance, there's a huge benefit for, everybody, again, here in the chain. And that is, for you, it's a revenue stream. It gets you a chance to get back in the door with your customer, potentially pick up more work, but obviously for the homeowner, make sure that they get a very long service life out of this piece of equipment. And then lastly, the heat exchanger, triangle tube, the original innovators of the fire tube heat exchanger. It's going to, again, kind of the heart and soul of Instinct Boiler. So with that, I will wrap it up. I know Jason's been answering some questions on the chat line.
Ross Christensen just jumped in, told us he's at 13 years with his PS 110.
Nice.
Thanks, Ross.
Yeah.
We got some great guys out there with some great questions. Mark, is it possible for you to allow folks to unmute themselves? Not unmute everyone, but there was some folks in here that had some really good questions that we could certainly cover and answer those topics live for them.
Yeah, without a doubt. Let me just see. Okay, so I've just allowed anybody that would like to unmute themselves, and if you've got comments or questions, please feel free. We'd love to hear from you. Just click your unmute on your microphone.
Yeah, Ron was talking with me privately just about some domestic water hot cold sandwich and how that situation works, and he just sent a message. Basically saying that when going from 2 showers down to 1, some products have a 4 degree temperature change, and some are 25 for demand water heaters, causing the hot water in the shower to go cold. So, Mark, I guess, do you want to address that hot cold sandwich, the flat plate heat exchanger, the larger water content in our heat exchanger, and how we handle that?
Yeah, I mean, really what you're talking about, I mean, if you've got, you've got let's say in this particular case, you've got 2 fixtures going at the same time, right? You've got, let's say 2 showers at 2 gallons a minute, right? So we get 4 gallons a minute flowing here, and then all of a sudden you shut one off, right? So what happens? Obviously now I've got half the flow at the same firing rate in the boiler. Obviously your temperature is going to go up, right? So this is the hot sandwich that you want to avoid. With the use of an NTC sensor, it's very quick to react to the boiler, and the boiler reacts in a very quick fashion to modulate down. And the boiler can modulate pretty quickly. Depending upon how much piping you have in your system, you may or may not notice that difference. If we're talking about a few degrees, if we're talking about, 3, 4, 5 degrees, and, we'll see that on instinct boiler. You will see that swing maybe as much as, 5 degrees or so. And depending upon, again, how much piping you have between the boiler and your fixture as to whether you'll actually really feel that temperature swing or not, it's usually pretty quick. But it all comes down to how quickly the boiler or water heater or whatever you have in your system can react to that change in flow temperature, or flow rate, I should say.
Hey, Mark, could you try that unmute feature so guys can't unmute themselves now? I guess they're locked. So I know Lauren might want to say hi. I think Lauren's going to sing for us. Right, Lauren?
You promised, Lauren.
You said something about Lady Gaga. He's been working on that.
Hang on 1 second
Now
they should be able to. Allow this to you should be able to unmute yourself. Ross, you want to give it a shot? I see you there. Say hi. Won't do it.
Won't do it.
There we go. How's that?
I did it. Yeah. Okay.
There we go.
How are you? Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for having me in.
You bet. You've got
the last one, so it's nice to be in on this one. So
good. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're going to actually post this on the website too, so anybody that wants to get back in and look at it again would have a chance to review as well. Anybody else? Yeah,
did we talk about the warm start? Just kind of explain that.
No. Yeah, so, well, yeah, I just tried unmuting everybody. That didn't work so well. Yeah, you can unmute you. I'm sorry. What was that question again, Tito?
The warm start feature that came up also on
yeah, it's basically allowing the boiler to maintain temperature in the flat plate heat exchanger, so that when you get when you do get flow and you get a call there, that you're not having to wait for, let's say, the boiler to start from a cold start. So you burn a little bit more fuel in maintaining that, but your boiler will be your domestic water will be a little bit more responsive to a call for domestic water.
And it does have a hysteresis, or like a over-under, right, that you can set so that when the temperature in the flat plate goes down a certain amount, right, it will then fire to maintain that temp. So can be effective, but I would say in most cases, our experience, when folks are not using warm start, they aren't really experiencing that cold water sandwich, right?
Yeah, Plum Tech raised his hand.
Did you say hysteresis?
I said, don't make me say it again. I think I got through that
Oh,
okay.
That's just kind of a good one. I think you said it right.
Well, I appreciate
sure.
that. I also make up words too. Ross agrees. Thanks, Ross.
Differential. Are you feeling perturbed this morning?
Dominic asks about recirc. So we don't recommend recirculation through the boiler. However, you could use a point of use electric water heater and operate your recirc in that manner, or where that's a must for that application. Certainly you could use our heat only offering and our smart tank and recirc through that smart tank, which might be more effective. Plum Tech has a mixing valve question.
He's unmuted.
So
Okay.
we're up here in Colorado. We have a lot of water restrictions on our fixtures up here. It's all EPA water sense stuff, very low flow. A lot of your diagrams had a mixing valve on the domestic side for the hot water going out to your point of use. Do you have problems with that? Because once you start backing off to an actual mixed temperature, dropping below that half gallon a minute?
I haven't seen that, Ross, but that's not to say that it hasn't happened. I don't know, Tito or Kevin, you guys are on here. Have you seen that in the field?
I haven't seen it used. So.
I can say typically, yeah, in the Northeast, we always have mixing valves for the domestic side, but maybe don't have the low flow situation yet.
Is there a minimum temperature difference between the outlet of the boiler and the valve? Say a 20-degree difference you guys are designing for? Like the boiler outputting at 140 and the mix going out at 120?
Not a minimum. I mean, the only minimum that we operate is about a 5-degree between boiler and that flat plate, but not the mixing valve. I see where you're going with that, with flow rates. So if you're 5 gallon and we're splitting some of that into the mixing valve, that you could have an issue. Like I said, I haven't seen it. I would have to check with some of the other techs to see if they have. These guys obviously haven't seen it either.
So Rigo's referring to, and he says in California, it's because of the half a gallon GPM requirement to move the flow wheel for activation. Is that?
That's what we were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say, is it at the fixtures you have less than half a gallon at? So I've seen it in showers where they have like a 0.8 GPM or something low flow shower head when someone comes in and does an energy audit, and then you get complaints of that shower going hot and cold in that situation, and then you'd have to just use a different fixture there for this combi boiler in that application. So I think it's application. If someone's looking to use those low flow fixtures, then that's something to pay attention to, because if you don't have that activation, it's not going to operate how you want it to.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Mark Nelson was talking about the pressure drop through heat exchanger for the boiler pumps.
Yeah, we have a.
Yeah, there's a curve. We don't have it in this presentation too. Right now. Yeah. As far as, I mean, we have a recommended, pump selection for the boiler, but as far as a curve to show you pressure loss through the heat exchanger, to have that available, not in this presentation, but.
Mark, I can email that to you. If you just send me an email, I can send you the pressure drop curves. I'll put my email here in the chat box. But it's available. I think it's in the manuals too. Any more questions out there, guys?
Gotcha. All right. Well, great. Thank you again, everybody, for taking the time to be on here today. We appreciate the support. As I mentioned, we're gonna bring on a couple of new classes next week. One will be on the kind of a deeper dive into the control, and kind of walk you right through live programming the control and navigating the control and the functionality. And then also another class on specifically piping, where we get a little bit more in depth in piping, the hows, whys, and whens to do some different things there. So I won't keep you any longer. Again, thank you, everybody. Look forward to a time where we can all be face-to-face again. But until then, I look forward to seeing you on the next meeting. So take care, and good health to everybody.